Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome to class. Today we are going to talk about an emerging subfield in social linguistics called linguistic landscape. It is relatively a recent development and started in 1990s with the works by Landry and Boris, Spolsky and Cooper and other people. Uh, when we say landscape, we are referring to a geographical location, a geographical area. And when we say linguistic landscape, that means we are talking about the presence of language in its visual form in public places. Now, in a multilingual society, we find multiple languages in public places in terms of public signages, names of the streets, names of shops, buildings, right? You go to railway station, you find a lot of text on display, you find a lot of instructions on display. Go to any government building, go to any privately owned shop, you find a lot of uh, you know language and information displayed in public. Now, if you pay close attention to it, in a multilingual society, you find multiple languages at play. Now, what determines which language will be represented in public space? What determines the linguistic hierarchy? Choice of languages, right? What triggers these choices? What are the motives, right? What are the triggering factors? This is what is all about linguistic landscape. And it is also a tool to understand a multilingual setting and linguistic hierarchy of a particular given region, right? So studies like Landry and Boris, Spolsky, Cooper, and other people have been, uh, you know, publishing a lot of work, and this has become another avenue to understand multilingualism and use of language in public. So today we are going to talk about linguistic landscape and subsequent developments in the field and how it is emerging as a popular and significant subfield in social linguistics. Uh, the language, how linguistic landscape is defined, and the early definition comes from, structure definition comes from Landry and Boris, 1997. And what they say? I quote from there. The language of public road signs, advertising, billboards, street names, place names, commercial shop signs, and public signs on government buildings combine to form the linguistic landscape of a given territory, region, or urban agglomeration. Landry and Boris, 1997. So all sorts of sites, all sorts of places where we see representation of language, and where we see language in use. So it may be a public building, it may be names and signages of the roads, of the buildings, of the coffee shops, other shops, uh, you know, set of instructions issued in public places, names of the streets, all kinds of billboards and advertisement that you find in public space, on roadsides, on highways, other places. So they all together combine and form a linguistic landscape, a site for language use visibly present in public space. This is what Landry and Boris, 1997, talk about, and this is how they define it. So the important characteristic of linguistic landscape is that it comprised of both public and private signs. So it's not necessarily government buildings and street names only, but also privately owned shops, right? Or privately owned any space and site where you see the language used. So basically, the physical presence of language in terms of notations and signs and names, be it a public space, be it a privately owned building, shop, and other things in the public space. It together it's a composite thing, so combines together the whole linguistic landscape. The signs issued by public authorities like government, municipalities, public agencies on one hand, and signs used by individuals, associations, or firms acting more or less autonomously in the limits authorized by official regulations. So, all places where you are able to see the use of language. We'll come to the Indian experience and Indian examples, but everywhere, wherever you see the use of language in terms of a billboard, uh, you know, a signage, a road name, a street name, a building name, shop name. So, how language is visible in these spaces? How many languages are visible in such spaces, right? Do we have a hierarchy of representation of these languages? And the presence of multiple languages in this particular notional boundaries, do they conform to certain social structure? Do they represent the aspirations of the language users? And such phenomena, they all combine to form the core theme of linguistic landscape. Uh, so it's a visibility and salience of language. That's what Landon Boris says. Seba Mark, 2010, she says, uh, linguistic landscape has been described as being somewhere at the junction of social linguistics, sociology, social psychology, geography, and media studies. It's kind of multidisciplinary theme that cuts across multiple disciplines like social linguistics, of course, from where it originated in the multilingual society, language in multilingual societies. Uh, Also sociology, it cuts across the theories in social theories, social sociology. It also has roots in social psychology, geography, the location and the area and the region, the territory, and media studies, where we talk about semiotics of advertisement and all kinds of billboards and things where you have information encoded. So this theme cuts across multiple disciplines: social linguistics, sociology, social psychology, geography, media studies, etc. And this is emerging as a very prominent and significant, important discipline area of study. If you look at the uh, emergence of linguistic landscape studies, relatively it's a very recent phenomenon. And if you recall, we talked about emergence of modern sociolinguistics, post-dialectology in 1960s. We can say that linguistic landscape emerged in 1990s. By the time sociolinguistics as a discipline was completely established, and it is a subfield of sociolinguistics. Uh, this concept is relatively new and originated in sociolinguistics and language planning, right? And which soon was extended to other disciplines. And it had roots in many other disciplines, and it has become now a very important, prominent, significant theme of studies. There are subsequent developments post publication of the works by Spolsky, Cooper, Landry, Boris in 90s. Series of initiatives and thematized activities led to the emergence of this discipline. So if you look at some thematized series of activities, a special issue of the International Journal of Multilingualism was dedicated to the subject, and it included all kinds of articles pertaining to linguistic landscape. So it provided an avenue to collect these ideas and put them together. Similarly, the journal World English has also published a special thematic issue as a symposium on world Englishes and linguistic landscape, five perspectives. It included five important articles and it was published in 2012. Then the International Journal of Sociology of Language also dedicated a volume in 2014 to the subject. And to mark the independent nature of this theme, John Benjamins launched in 2015 an academic journal which is named as Linguistic Landscape and International Journal. So now people around the world, researchers, scholars around the world are working in this on this theme, and these are the places which systematically published and popularized the discipline, the newly emerged theme in social linguistics. Uh, Pennycook 2009 gives a fresh perspective. So, unlike Spalsky, Cooper, Landry, and Boris, he gives a fresh perspective in understanding linguistic landscape and says, I quote from Pennycook 2009, page 309. He says, a far more dynamic account of space, text, and interaction is needed in linguistic landscape studies. Readers and writers are part of the fluid urban semiotic space and produce meaning as they move, write, read, and travel. So he uses a fresh perspective to understanding the linguistic landscape theme. Now, what are the contributing factors and disciplines in emergence of linguistic landscape as a new area of studies? So disciplines like urban sociolinguistics and use of language, concepts like urban studies and cultural geography, discourse studies, social semiotics, globalization for that matter, and rapid movement of transnational flow of people, product, and resources and information. Of course, language planning and policy also contributed in development of this phenomenon. Social identities, multimodal social theories, multilingualism, language in use. So all these factors and all these areas contributed in the development of linguistic landscape. And if you look at the significance of this subfield, if you look at the significance of this theme and discipline, as an independent variable, it contributes to a group's ethno-linguistic vitality, said Landry and Boris. It signals what languages are, prominent and valued in public and private spaces, and indexes the social positioning of people who identify with particular languages, right? So it talks about if you look at the presence of language in this public space, it symbolizes, it represents a number of issues and factors. It talks about the cultural harmony, history of the place. It also unravels the layers of politics of language. It also represents linguistic hierarchy, which language is preferred over which language, right? It talks about the prestige value assigned to language in use in public space. So language A gets prominence over language B in writing and orthographic representation in public space. Uh, it also represents aspiration of people and their political goals, right? So the social hierarchy is represented in linguistic hierarchy in terms of presence of language in the public space. It talks about linguistic inclusion and exclusion. What languages are included to be represented in public space and what languages are excluded even if you have speakers in the same territory. The language may not be represented in public signages, right? And this is not a coincidence, but it has got a linguistic hierarchy, prestige value, and a whole set of language politics. It talks about collective identities of people and speakers who use this language in that particular territory. So linguistic landscape not simply is the study of billboards and signboards and the representation of language in public spaces, but it has got a wide range of issues, and it's in a very subtle way it represents a lot of socio-linguistic factors used implied in this language use in public space. You might have seen, you might have traveled in Indian Railway, and you might have seen at least three languages on railway stations, uh, name of the railway stations for that matter, the signages, uh, instructions placed on platforms, and also inside the train. You might have seen some instructions, some notices, some set of rules published on the on and pasted on the walls of the train. And you have noticed it's not in just one language; it's in many languages. And if you look at the station, railway station, and if you pay attention to the name of the station, usually it has three languages present there. Now recall the language policy, official language policy. Now recall uh, the three language formula, right? You might have seen, uh, you know, a busy bazaar in in societies, Indian markets. Look at the signages and boards in market in the area around you. Go to your own market and see. Overwhelmingly, you will find English signages and names of the shops, uh, anglicized names. Even if script is different, you will find anglicized names. Uh, Majority of the shops will have English component, will have English language present in their signage. Even on government buildings, you'll find names in English, in Hindi, which is official language of India, and a local regional language, which is also official language. And this is not coincidence. This is a pattern. It represents, if you look at the government buildings, it represents language policy of government of India, uh, promoting regional language. Right? You might find some signages and boards in the area, in your own local area, where you'll find a dominant regional language present along with English and Hindi. So in Chennai, you'll have Tamil, Hindi, and English. In Maharashtra, you will have Marathi, Hindi, and English. In Kolkata or in Bengal, you will have Bangla, Hindi, and English. In Punjab, you will have Punjabi, Hindi, and English. In UP, Uttar Pradesh, you'll find, uh, because Urdu is also official language of UP, you'll find Urdu, Hindi, and English. Go to Lucknow for that matter. In Bihar also, similar case. So even if his scripts are different, right? Uh, there are three languages in Delhi, for that matter. You find four languages in public signages and government buildings, government streets and roads. You'll have Gurumukhi script, Punjabi. You'll have Urdu. You'll have Hindi and English, and it's very significant. In private owned shops, also you'll find overwhelmingly presence of English. And this overwhelming presence of English also denotes the aspiration of the Indian society, which looks at English as a language of social upward mobility, a marker of, it's a postmodern phenomenon, a marker of identity. So even the small hairdressing salon will have, English name and English uh, Roman script in its signage, in its name of the shop, even if the regular visitors and customers are not able to read it. Mostly, if in the suburban areas, you'll find English signages. So what I'm trying to say is that presence of such languages in public space not only denotes the linguistic hierarchy, prestige value, aspirations of the speakers, but also represents a pattern, right, parallel to the social structure of that territory and region. And that's what we have to understand when we talk about linguistic landscape. So it represents culture, it represents the history of that area and territory, it represents politics that goes on in terms of linguistic politics. It also represents linguistic hierarchy and prestige value assigned to a particular language in the area, in that territory. Uh, you know, it represents the aspirations of people and their political motives and goals. It also signifies linguistic inclusion and underlines linguistic exclusion. What language is to be displayed in public and what has to be laid down. And it also represents collective identity of the people in that territory and area. So that's a very significant uh, theme to be studied in the social linguistics, and it has emerged as a very significant thematic subfield of study in social linguistics today. If you look at the Indian experience I was talking about, apart from uh, administration and education, English is significantly controlling, the landscape uh, of linguistic landscape of India in terms of technology, trade, and commerce. The creative imaginations and popular culture are no exceptions, as English captures a sizable space encoding socio-cultural expressions. Uh, because as we all know, India is a multilingual country, a society, and hundreds of languages are spoken. English is not language of the land, but because of our colonial history, English has occupied a very prominent place in Indian society. And today we talk about Indian English as a variety of English. It is no more foreign, it is no more alien, it is no more uh, other tongue. Praval Das Gupta says anti tongue syndrome. So it's no more foreign in that way, and it captures the popular imagination. It is seen as a tool for social upward mobility. So when you look at the Indian linguistic landscape, you can see the hierarchy, linguistic hierarchy, and how it represents the aspiration of people, right? Uh, the texts in English are rooted in Indian socio-cultural spaces where the characters and events represent multilingual and multicultural background of the environment, and we use English so creatively that the native speakers of English will have difficult time interpreting and understanding, because we have customized it and we have assimilated it in our linguistic ecology in such a way that it is no more a foreign language. And if you look at the Indian suburban sites of language use, it is completely dominated by English, and then, of course, the regional language. So, you know, it's a very interesting linguistic landscape when we look at Indian scenario, Indian case. And for you, I just bring a few, examples. Look at this is GS Road, Guwahati Shillong Highway, and there is a resort on the way. And a very interesting signage I noticed there, which gave direction to toilets. Look at the signage. It says washrooms, he and she, and it indicates the arrow. But it doesn't stop here. Look at the sentence written there, expression there. He to the left. So without saying even, the arrow indicates that it is towards the left, and she to the right. But look at the expression used. He to the left, because she is always right. It's not simply uh, a direction, giving direction to go to a female toilet or a male toilet. Toilet meant for men, toilet meant for women. It's not simply giving the location and direction, but also incorporating a very important popular uh, cultural belief, right? And talks about position of woman in our imagination. And then, it may be anecdotal, but it does have that Indianness to this expression. Look at this. So, you know, she to the left, because she is always right. Apparently, it looks like a simple signage in English that gives you location and direction, but there is more to it. Similarly, at Guwahati Airport, there was one billboard. Look at this billboard. So you have a combination of Roman and Devanagari script here. The word is a Hindi word written in Roman script with an inserted Devanagari script alphabet, and it says Hastakshar. Hastakshar means signature in English. So Hastakshar, the phonic sound Hasta, and then this Devanagari alphabet Ksha, and then AR, Hastakshar. Uh, Look at these signages. we can talk about problem of translation. We can talk about spelling errors. That सरकारी ठंडी बियर की दुकान, and the translation is child beer. Right? It is funny. It may be interesting, but what it says, it talks about. Look at the shop and look at the signage and look at the location, locality. You can imagine, how many English speakers visit this shop. But it captures the aspiration of the people in the area. This is what I was talking about in terms of compliance of the language policy and planning in India. Look at the signages all over railway stations, and you'll find the trilingual or four languages signages all over in whatever part of the country you travel. Delhi Sadar Bazaar, for that matter, railway station. So Hindi at the top, then you have English, then you have Gurumukhi script, Punjabi, and Urdu. These are four official languages of Delhi. Look at Chennai Central, Tamil, Hindi, and English. Right? This is the exit of New Delhi railway station. And if you look at the signages and boards, you find overwhelmingly presence of English. And if you look at the locality and the place and the potential visitors of the place, right? Majority of the visitors of such places will not be able to read what is there on the board, right? But it captures the aspiration of the people, the popular imagination and inspiration. So English symbolizes that, and you'll find presence of English all over. You go to your own local market, and you'll find such phenomena present there. And this is very important. It looks simple, but it implies a lot of social, geographical, and other cultural aspects to it. If you look at this as I told you that this phenomena is very recent phenomena, and hardly started in 1990s, but it has been established as a very productive and important subfield in social linguistics. Some significant publications in this area. This is not an exhaustive list, but there are some publications in the area, and that I have tried to incorporate here, include here, which is not. It is not exhaustive, but we cannot ignore these studies. And it starts with Landry and Boris, 1997, Linguistic Landscape and Ethno-Linguistic Vitality, an empirical study published in Journal of Language and Social Psychology, right, in 1997. Then another important work that we cannot miss is Bernard Spolsky and Robert Cooper, 1991, The Languages of Jerusalem, published by Oxford University Press. Elena Shahami and Der Gotha, 2009, Linguistic Landscape, Expanding the Scenery, New York and London, published by Routledge. Jennifer Lehman and Gabriela Modan, 2009, Commodified Language in Chinatown, a contextualized approach to linguistic landscape, published in the Journal of Social Linguistics in 2009. Then Samira Hasa, Regulating and Negotiating Linguistic Diversity, Top-Down and Bottom-Up Language Planning in Moroccan City, published in Current Issues in Language Planning in 2012. A very important publication in that way. Then Nishant Choksi, published in 2014, Scripting the Border, Script Practices and Territorial Imagination Among Santali Speakers in Eastern India, published in International Journal of Sociology of Language. Then Jason Senoj and Doug Gota, 2006, Linguistic Landscape and Minority Languages, published in International Journal of Multilingualism. Then Peter Beckhaus, Multilingualism in Tokyo, a look into linguistic landscape, International Journal of Multilingualism, published in 2006. Then Salim Ben Said, 2010, Urban Street Signs in Linguistic Landscape of Tunisia, Tensions in Policy, Representation and Attitudes. It was a doctoral dissertation in Pennsylvania State University. Then the material culture of multilingualism, moving beyond the linguistic landscape, by Larissa Aronin and Laurie Morris, published in International Journal of Multilingualism in 2013. And a number of other important publications like Spelling Bilingualism, Script Choices in Russian American Classified Ads and Signages, right? Carol, Arthur Pollock and Patrick, Productos Latinos, Latino Business Murals, Symbolism, and the Social Enactment of Identity in Gender and in Greater Los Angeles, Journal of American Folklore, and so on. I mean, this is very, very long. So finally, we can conclude that linguistic landscape, right, is a combination of all kinds of signages, billboards, names, and sites which represent language, which has language expressions physically present in the public space, and it represents a wide range of themes like history of that area, social structure, cultural practices, aspirations of people, collective identities, right? Prestige value assigned to languages, right? And so on. So linguistic landscape is a newly emerged subfield in social linguistics, and it is gaining popularity, and a lot of work is being done around the world and published, and this is emerging as a very important, significant discipline. It cuts across multiple disciplines like sociology, social psychology, media studies, uh, geography, semiotics, and so on. As an observer, you can look around your physical space, go to market, go to or build of offices, and you can find the presence of language, and you know uh, in a multilingual setting like India, you'll find more than one language in that. So these are important, significant publications in the field, and the work is in progress. People in multiple locations all around the world are working on characters, properties, and patterns of representation of language in public space, and how it encodes the linguistic attitude, linguistic hierarchy, prestige value assigned to it, and representation of language and local culture in public space. So this is it for now. We will talk about other relevant theme in the area in our next class. Thank you very much.